everyone, it's Alice and welcome to our December wrap-up. Well, we managed to read 14 books in December, so if you'd like our thoughts on Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, Wolflight by Yaba Badawi, The Kiss by Lucy Courtenay, or The 2 O'Clock Boy by Mark Hill. Those will all be featured in the mid-month wrap-up, so I will link that down below if you'd like to see what we got up to reading in the first half of the month. I will be honest that we didn't finish our TBR for December. We didn't get a chance to get to Zeros by Scott Westerfeld, Tempests and Slaughter by Tamora Pierce, or This Love by Danny Atkins, but we did manage to read 104% of the page numbers that we were aiming for, because we had to make the decision as to whether we completed the TBR and read those books, or whether we finished our Goodreads reading challenge goal instead by reading a few shorter books. So we ended up going for that instead, because those ones were quite chunky. I think they were all over 400 pages. But we actually did end up reading 5,200 pages in December, and we were aiming to read 4,978. So we managed to just beat it. So I'm really happy with that. I did already do a punishment pick for January because we didn't finish our Hook a Duck books. But I think going forward it'll be that we'll do a punishment pick if we don't finish the Hook a Duck books, and a punishment pick if we don't get 100% of the page count that we were aiming for. But otherwise, if it's just one of those things, then we'll just do one punishment, and if we manage to do both those things, then no punishments. So that'd be nice. I wish that we hadn't made the punishment pot because it's gotten a bit out of control. But let's get on with it. In the second half of December, no, let's not get on with it. We've still got to do the star stats. So in December, we read 1 5-star book, we read 9 4-star books, we read 3 3-star books, and we read 1 book that was 2.5 stars. So this still ended up being a really good reading month for us. We didn't do stats for the whole year, so I don't know whether this was our best reading month, but I think it was definitely up there, because I know we read more 5-stars in January, but we also read a ton of 2-stars. So I think this is properly up there in some of the best months that we've had this year. And I'm really glad that we managed to read such a diverse selection of books as well. So that was really nice. So now we can get on with talking about the books. So first of all, I'd like to talk about Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Wow. I nearly skipped the Illumicrate that this was in because it just doesn't sound like my kind of book. I'm not a huge, I love sci-fi, but I don't read a lot of it, and I'm always very apprehensive about it because it takes so long for me to get my head around the world, and it takes me so long to get into the story that it has to be either written in a really unique way or it has to have really powerful characters for me to connect to it as deeply as I'd like to. But this has both of those. So I will admit that towards the end of the book, everything was happening too quickly for me and I had no idea what was going on, but I've already arranged with Sean that we will be rereading this together because the third book in the series, which is Alecto the Ninth, has been pushed back from a 2020 run release for a 2022. So I'm going to need to reread this before it comes out anyway. So I'll be able to get my head around it properly then. So I'm not even that mad that I didn't understand it all. But I did end up dropping it down to a 4-star because I had a feeling it was going to be a 5-star when I got to the halfway point, but I did drop it down because I just didn't understand. There's also some pacing issues in it that it does get quite slow. If you don't know what Gideon the Ninth is, so Gideon is a member of the Ninth House, not the Leigh Bardugo Ninth House, a different Ninth House, just really strangely came out a few weeks apart from each other, which is just a bit of a coincidence. But Gideon is one of the youngest people in this house and everybody hates her for some reason, and she keeps trying to escape. So the book starts with her ordering a shuttle and saying that she's leaving, but the necromancer for the house, who is Harrow, she comes along and she foils Gideon's escape plan, and then she reveals the fact that she's had a letter from the Emperor, who has decided that he needs more necromancers. So he's getting 1 necromancer from each of the houses, 2nd through 9th house, and they're cavaliers, and he's shipping them all off to the planet where the 1st house lives, or lived. I think they're completely extinct. But he's shipping them all off and they've got to try to become lictors. So there's an element of a competition here. There's some kind of brain teaser puzzle things. So if you are somebody who likes books that have quite a fast-paced kind of race against the clock trying to complete all of the challenges for other people, then this will appeal for that. But it does take quite a while to set that aspect of it up, because the first challenge is really, really difficult, so they all kind of struggle to get off of that starting block. But it's also like a murder mystery as well, because people, like some of the people from the other houses are found dead, and they don't know whether it's one of the other competitors or whether it's like something sinister going on in the house, whether it's kind of like, I mean, it's necromancers, so there's lots of skeletons that have been reanimated. There's lots of kind of playing with bone magic and death, and it's just a question of whether it's like something darker or whether it's just a simple murder, because they're competing against each other. So there's a lot of different things going on in this book. I can say I absolutely love Tamsin Muir's writing style. I think she's got such a sardonic way of writing, and I was like snorting to myself. Gideon's one-liners are amazing, and there were even some quotes that I read out to Sean, and I was like, I love this quote, I'm going to read it out to you. And that was what made him think like, oh, maybe I am interested in this one, because he was like, yeah, I definitely don't want to read that with you. And I was like, oh, I think I've missed out. And I don't blame him, because it was very, very interesting. I think that the dynamic between Harrow and Gideon is a very interesting dynamic. I don't know if I'll be alone in like low-key shipping them, but like the way that they're like, it's like enemies to friends, and I just kind of want it to go that bit further, because like they're just really, really sweet to each other, even if they do kind of hate each other. It's like, because they've come from the same house, they're kind of paired together through everything, and they've always got each other's backs, even if they're kind of pretending that they don't. And I love that aspect of it. Yeah, like it's going to be one of those books that I think on a reread I'll be able to savour it a bit more, and I'll understand it a bit more, and I will properly fall in love with it. But first time around, I can say that I'm really, really interested in where the story's going to go. The ending is fascinating. I did kind of see it coming, but in a interesting way. Yeah, I'm just really interested to carry on with these, and I'm looking forward to picking up Harrow, and then eventually rereading them both before Alecto is released. So yeah, a little bit slow at times, but other than that, a very, very interesting spacey story based off of necromancers and bone magic. Like, that's really cool. Oh, I've rambled about that far too long. The next book I'd like to talk about is I'll Be Home for Christmas, which is a Stripes anthology. So it's got lots and lots of little short stories in here, and they're all based around like home and Christmas time. So the sense of belonging, the sense of having somewhere to go, what makes a home, whether it's like a found family or whether it is your family or whether it is the bricks and mortar building itself. So there's lots and lots of different interesting approaches to this topic in here. And I can say this is the second time that I've read this, and I think I actually enjoyed it more second time around, because when I first read it I wasn't a huge fan of verse, so the fact that there's two poems in here I was kind of a bit dismissive of them. But I think this time around, since I read this, I've like gotten into a relationship and we've had children and we bought our own house, and I think the meaning of family and the meaning of home has shifted for me so dramatically since I first read this book, that it's a lot more powerful for me now, and it had a lot more of an emotional impact on me. I did still give it 4 stars. The first time around I gave it 3.7 stars because I rated the stories individually and then like did an average, so then I rounded it up to 4 stars. But yeah, it's definitely a 4-star collection. I think, gosh, what would my favourites be? I love Mom Pratt's short story in this one. I love Kat Clark's short story in this one. Holly Bourne, always amazing. Tracy Darnton also, like, she won a competition to have her story featured in this, and it was the first time she'd been published, and she's managed to kind of make a name for herself now. So it's always fascinating to see where authors start off, and I think especially with that situation behind it. So this is one I definitely recommend picking up over the Christmas months if you like short stories and anthologies. I did pick that one up because I stupidly got the anthology punishment stick while we were doing the Hook of That TBR, and I was like, oh, we'll read Metamorphosis and Other Stories. That's not an anthology, that's a short story collection. That's an anthology. So that was me doing my punishment pick properly afterwards. This was me doing the book that I told you I was going to read. Very confusing, didn't really understand it, but it's written so well that I think it's just because I'm not smart enough to understand literary fiction and classics. So there's not really much more I can say about this one, but this is also a 4-star. That's something I think I'd need to read more about it and learn the context and things before I can fully appreciate it. The next book I'd like to talk about is A Girl Called Owl by Amy Wilson. This is a debut middle grade novel about a girl who doesn't know who her father is, and then one day she starts kind of getting these magical icy powers, and she discovers that it's linked to her parentage, and then she kind of goes on her own personal quest to discover who her father is, to meet him, and then to kind of get to know him a bit better. I will admit, I didn't know much about this book before I picked it up, but I know who her father is, and it wasn't until I was reading it that I was like, oh, that's actually quite a big spoiler. And so I did kind of spoil this one in my TBR, which I feel a bit bad about because I had no idea it was a spoiler. I thought you knew that going in, like, oh yeah, her dad is bleep. You don't know that going in. It's pretty obvious because being a middle grade, I think that, like, it's not like it hits you in the face, but it's not as subtly foreshadowed as it could be. Like, it's quite clear as an adult reader reading the middle grade where it's going, but I'm not sure if it's something that a middle grade reader would pick up if they didn't know much about kind of the mythology and the character who is her father. I really enjoyed this one, but I did only give it 3 stars because it was a book that I felt was a little bit slow, and I also felt it was trying to do too much at once, which it's an interesting contradiction there. But the plot moves very slowly, but it's trying to talk about Owl being bullied at school and struggling with acceptance because, like, her name is Owl and she's always kind of felt like an outsider. There's the new boy at school and they're developing a relationship. Her friend's parents' marriage has just split up, so there's like themes of divorce, and there's like the kind of way that her friend is dealing with it and how she is trying to support her friend. There's her relationship with her mother is quite strained because of the fact that she wants to learn more about her father and her mother's not that happy kind of talking about it. There's obviously the relationship with her father is explored, but there's some kind of magical realism, fantastical aspects as well. And I think, considering the fact this is like, yeah, it's just over 300 pages, it's 325 pages, and it just feels like it's kind of being crammed in a bit too much. A sequel to this book did come out earlier this year, which was Owl and the Lost Boy, I want to say. I'll get Sean to put the cover here so you'll know if it is. But the sequel came out earlier, not in this year because it's 2021 now. The sequel came out like in 2020, so I'm wondering whether those themes and those plots are going to be explored more thoroughly in the second book, or whether it's going to continue a lot of the story that didn't get told in the first one. If so, I think that the second one is going to end up getting quite a jump-in rating for me, because I really like Amy Wilson's writing, but it just felt a bit too rushed and squeezed in, which was a shame because this actually means that this is the only book in this whole video that I'm going to talk about that we didn't give 4 stars to. I didn't realise how well the last half of the month had gone, because that's the only book that isn't 4 stars, because the next 3 books are all in the same series, and we read these over the last week of the year, and that is A Boy Called Christmas, The Girl Who Saved Christmas, and Father Christmas and Me by Matt Haig. This is a middle grade series following Father Christmas, surprisingly. You follow a boy called Nicholas who he is trying to find his father. His father has to go to try and find Elfhelm and try and get proof of it because he needs money. Nicholas goes to find his father. He manages to find Elfhelm because he bumps into an elf, and they basically tell him, like, the only way that you find it is by, like, truly believing that it exists. So he believes in it and it appears, and then he discovers that an elf has been kidnapped and that his father is involved in the kidnapping plot. So there's a lot going on in this one as well, but there's just something about Matt Haig's writing. Like, I loved The Midnight Library. I really enjoyed How to Stop Time. Like, sometimes I feel totally overwhelmed by what he's trying to do because he does squeeze a lot into his books, but he also does it in such a satisfying manner. So that's the first book. The second book follows a girl called Amelia who is taken to a workhouse in London, and she is the first girl who ever really believed in Christmas, so the hope that she has was a huge part of the way that Christmas was such a success. And then because she gets taken to this workhouse and her hope kind of diminishes, Father Christmas has to go and try to save her so that she can save Christmas. So there's a lot of interesting aspects in that one as well. And then the third book follows Amelia again as she's like going on adventures with Father Christmas, and is kind of, instead of just the story of her in relation to Christmas, it's like her story. It's hard to explain without giving spoilers away, because they do follow on very nicely from each other. The reason I gave the first one 4 stars was probably pretty much for the same reason as A Girl Called Owl, if I'm honest. Like, it was just trying to do too much, but also I just love Matt Haig writing that a little bit more, which is how I managed to bump it up to 4 stars rather than leaving it down at 3. I've got a feeling Sean gave it 3.5 and ended up rounding it up. So it's very much like a 3 to 4 star story. It's got the magic of Christmas, but I think you're trying to learn a lot about the way that Matt Haig is twisting the Christmas lore and the way that he is making these elves and creating Elfhelm. There's just an awful lot going on. The second book, there was quite a few discrepancies between the first book and the second book. Like, Sean has a feeling that the second one was written first. I don't know why I'm pointing, because you're not here. I don't... Huh. Sean has a feeling that the second book was written first because it just reads as though it's like the first book could have been written retrospectively, which is, I can see what he means. It's hard to put it into words, but I can totally see what he means. And then the third book's written in like a completely different style, and it just kind of threw me out a little bit. I really enjoyed all of them, and these are books that I'm going to be rereading. These are books I'm going to be purchasing. I think it would have also helped if I'd read them physically, because on the library app I was reading them through the Firebox, and the illustrations are split into like 3 chunks, so you have to like, oh, this is like where the illustration starts, then you've got the main bit, and then it like finishes up here, and it gets a bit kind of distorted. And I think maybe if I'd been reading it physically and I'd had all of the illustrations laid out, it would have made it a bit less cluttered, I guess is the right word for it. But yeah, these are ones that we're going to be revisiting with the children, and we absolutely enjoyed them, but just not quite as much as we enjoyed Matt Haig's adult writing. I think it's brilliant though that he manages to write such powerful adult books and such powerful middle grade books. Like, he really does have a talent for writing non-fic, fic, any kind of writing. Matt Haig, he absolutely nails it. So if you haven't tried his writing yet, definitely do that to start, because I think he's becoming one of my favourite authors, and I love that for me. But yes, it's just a case that they were a little bit too overstuffed. But I did also like the fact that there are like bittersweet elements. It's not like this is a Christmas story so everything is magical, everything is amazing. Like, you've got death in here, you've got loss in here, you've got themes of abandonment, you've got themes of not fitting in, you've got themes of feeling like an outcast. Like, it's not just a magical Christmas story, like, with uplifting, happy themes. There are uplifting and happy bits, there are funny bits, there are really hilarious scenes, and you've got the illustrations that make them even funnier. But he's not afraid to stray into like the darker side of life, and I think that's a really great thing for middle grade, and it's something that I've said in the past that I absolutely love about Who Let the Gods Out. Like, I think that middle grade authors who can make a magical, enjoyable, fun and uplifting story, but also still bring in that realism and still make life hard, it's just such a talent, and I absolutely adore it. And I'm looking forward to reading the Truth Pixie. I'm looking forward to reading the Truth Pixie and carrying on with the stories in this realm. And just write more books, Matt Haig, please. I want to read more of your stuff. And that is it for our December wrap-up. Our wrap-ups might be changing slightly going forward, because we've been talking about doing the stats slightly differently. So you might see a little shift in the way that we're doing things by the end of January, but that depends on how long it takes us to get our shit together. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you agree with my thoughts on any of these books, then please leave a comment down below. If you disagree with my thoughts on any of these books, please leave a comment down below. Like, let me know how you feel about these books if you've read them. Let me know if there's any that you're excited about or anything that's similar that you would recommend me picking up. If you'd like to subscribe, then I'd be super duper grateful. And if you like this video, then please do give it a like. And we will see you soon with the next one. I have no idea when this one is going up, so I don't know when that will be. But hopefully at some point within the next couple of days. We'll be posting videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, and we'd love it if you'd come back and hang out with us on those days. See you then. Bye!